Friday, February 10th, 2017. Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So I like to talk about money and the nature of money and what it really is. The kind of talk that you don't hear in schools. And I'm not just talking public schools or state schools like they call it here in the UK. Every kind of school, private schools, universities, something they never talk about, the real nature of money and what it really is. I know my channel is called the home of alternative economics and contrarian views, but I would say 100 years ago or so, when our great grandparents were alive, a lot of the things I'm talking about were like taken for granted, but it's been a lot of things to do with money have been changed gradually through emergencies. And I want to start out with World War I. Prior to World War I, most people used these coins, sovereign, as that was a pound as money, or, they used, the $50, silver $50 as money. But then the emergency of World War I and the fact that so much money had to be borrowed by the governments and spent, they had an excuse to take the monetary system in Europe, not in the US, but here in the UK, they took it off the gold standard, and they got people used to, what they used to call, they would stop specie payments. Specie is a coin, they would suspend it, a specie payment. They had done it before. They did it during the Napoleonic Wars for about 15, 20 years here in England, in the UK. But then it came back, the honest monetary system came back after the war. But this time, after World War I, it was the death knell of real money and what it really is. And they started, giving people these. This is actually from 1951, and it's a promissory note. It's basically, a bond. It does pay on demand, so it's not a long-term bond. It's a bond on demand, you'd say. Some people call it cash nowadays. This is from 1951, and if you read carefully, it says Bank of England. So it's a Bank of England bond, and they're promising to pay someone with what? Well, back then it was with nothing, because 1951 there was no more gold standard. But they say, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £5. 1951, August 31st, London, for the governor and company of the Bank of England. But it's a fraudulent note. Of course, the legal authorities in this country will not go against the Bank of England. If I issued someone a promise to pay someone something, let's say Monaco 64 promises to pay the bearer, 10 iPhones, and then they come on demand, and then someone comes with that note and says, I want 10 iPhones. And I say, oh, sorry, I'll just give you another one of these, another promise to pay you the iPhone. The guy would think, or a girl would think, I'm crazy. You promised to pay me iPhone. You give me another promise to pay iPhone? Where is my iPhone? So this is, emergencies like World War I, patriotism they use. That's how they got away with paying people with a promissory note that promises you to, someone to pay nothing. And by suspending specie payment or the gold standard, they also got people used to, not used to anymore. Younger people didn't know of the day when people used, something of real value, something that takes a lot of work and effort to get out of the ground, and something that's been appreciated and held its purchasing power for thousands of years. I recommend people watch the History Channel program, Gold Rush. You see how hard it is to get this stuff out of the ground. And this is continued. We still have from nowadays. It's not as nice, you see. It's just smaller, not as good quality, this 10-pound note. Mainly because they've got to print so many more of these that they got to make it cheaper. So, but it's the same, it says the same thing. Bank of England, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of £10. The promise, as you can see, is a lot smaller because they don't want people looking at this and questioning it. So it's getting smaller and smaller, the promise. And if you call the Bank of England and ask them, what do you give me in exchange if I tender this note? They said, oh, this promise just means that we'll give you a new note if your old note is damaged. And you ask, so it's not a promise. It's you should write this. You can come to the Bank of England and exchange this for a new note. But they've kept this fraudulent, misleading statement on the note. But now they're trying to get away even with that, so people actually forget what real money is, even though this isn't real money. And they're trying to get people to use these debit cards, contactless cards, trying to get people to avoid using cash. They're doing it already in socialist havens like Sweden, Denmark, countries that are, so socialist, it's not even funny. And people don't realize, they're told that it's for convenience. But the other emergency they've used, they used World War I 100 years or so ago. Now they use, the war on terror excuse, a war on drugs, a war on crime. They say that people who use these are criminals or terrorists. So they're trying to get people not to use these anymore, even though, as I said, this is not real money. They want people to just accept money as something that the Bank of England or the the Federal Reserve create out of thin air, and not something of real value that humans appreciate. It's difficult to explain why, before I bought my first gold coin in 2002, I never really held a gold coin. The only gold I held was my wedding ring, and it was white gold, 18 karat. So, but then I bought my first Krugerrand, and I realized, wow, this is amazing. You feel the weight of the coin. It's always the surprising thing is the weight and the beauty of it. And it's just something that, 2,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago in Rome, with a piece of, a gold coin, you could buy a nice toga and a nice sandal. And nowadays, I do think the purchasing power has been manipulated of gold, i.e. the price in fiat money, but you should be able to buy, with 1 ounce of gold at least, a nice suit and a nice pair of shoes. But yeah, you can, but if you really want to buy a good one, you won't be able to. It will put you back more than £2,500 if you buy a tailored suit and a church's leather shoes, for example. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. That's the biggest fake, there's a lot of talk about fake news, but this is the biggest, fake system there is out there, our monetary system. Our central banks and their agent banks, they're the biggest counterfeiters of value or money that there is out there, because money should represent effort, should represent your labor, should represent your time, should represent your ideas, and all capital is excess labor or great ideas that add value stored away. And through human, society, the last few thousand years, money has been created by men to store that extra labor, to store the good idea that creates value. And in the past, that's been represented through silver, gold. People have, of course, used cigarettes after World War II in Germany, but through the ages, this has been the best store of value or wealth or labor or capital there has been. And all these are fraudulent promises by governments that have hijacked the monetary system. So why aren't we taught these concepts in schools or universities? Well, because the people who run the fraudulent system, they've got the control of the money. They endow the universities. They hire the professors they want, to teach, the fraudulent economics that says this is money, this piece of paper, and to say that this is just, a barbaric relic, even though, it's a coin from, let's see, 1845, gold sovereign, and it's still worth 250 pounds, even though legally in this country, the legal value of this is £1. But of course, you won't be able to buy it for £1. If you're stupid enough, I guess you could use that to buy a newspaper. You say this is £1. But yeah, so yeah, and the other thing as well, the big banks, they finance the big corporations, they finance the media, and CNBC, Bloomberg, and all these people, they play the game. They believe that this is money. And I'm sure there's going to be some people that watch my videos and say, oh, Monaco64, these are not money anymore because I can't go to Kmart or Walmart or Starbucks and buy things. Well, that's true, but only because governments and banks have made it illegal for you through the force of their guns and their law, enforcement systems. So basically, we are under a banking, dictatorship that tells us what we should use, to represent our daily efforts, our labor, our ideas, everything. So hopefully, I've made videos like this before, but I'm always getting new subscribers, and hopefully you enjoyed this. And yeah, especially to younger people, it's very convenient to use debit cards or credit cards, swipe them and pay for it. But it's a trick, in my opinion. They want people to be not using cash at all, so they'll have total control of you. So what can we do to avoid that? Well, try to use cash as much as possible. If you don't really need to use your card, or if you use your debit card, just take some cash out of the machine and pay for things in cash. Yeah, it's convenient to use your card, but what's more, is your freedom less important than convenience? So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it far and wide. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. If you'd like to donate to my channel, if you think I add value to your views and opinions, you can donate to my channel. There's some links below in the description. Take care. Bye.